All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unity Center of Light. We are a spiritual community that nurtures the growth of all who are seeking to develop their spirit, mind, and body. I'm April May, licensed Unity teacher with Unity Center of Light, and it's my pleasure today to guide us through our service. We have lots of good that's going on already behind the scenes. So I would just like to ask you guys to help me to welcome any newcomers here today. Anybody who's here for the first time, I don't see anybody that's not recognizable, but if you are, please feel free to put your name and contact information in the chat. If you'd like to receive our regular communications, you can put your email there as well. And we welcome you today. We know already the ripple effect of the good that's going to go out of this experience today. So I'd like to invite you to join me in sharing in our mission and our foundation statements. You see that with me? Okay. So please join me. The mission of Unity Center of Light is to empower individuals to express their indwelling divine potential. We teach there is a power within each of us far greater than anything that exists outside of us. And our foundation statement, there is only one power and one presence active in my life and affairs, God the good, omnipotent. Amen. And now I would like to invite Christine to share the daily word with us for today.
Good morning. Our word for today is reflection. I reflect the brilliant light of God. God, the one presence and power in the universe, is expressing through all people, the natural world, and all other aspects of life. If I ever doubt the presence of God, I need only behold the world around me. The light of God is being reflected in the kind words and acts of people, in the beauty and magnificence of nature, and in life's grand rhythms and minuscule movements. I too reflect the brilliance of God. My ideas, dreams, and all I do to make my mark on the world are just some of the ways the divine expresses uniquely as me. Living from my divinity, I bring more of God's light into the world. And the scripture is from 2 Corinthians 3:18. And all of us, seeing the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And thank you for sharing your glory with us this morning. So it really is my pleasure today to take the opportunity to share with you a new connection we've made for Unity Center of Light with Reverend Sherrie Quander. She hails from Unity of Fairfax these days. Russell Highland, we know him, the minister there, and she comes highly recommended. I hope over the last few weeks you've seen her biographical information. And I was telling her this morning that I couldn't share it all because I'd be taking up half of her talk time. So we are very grateful to have a person with so much expansive life experience and spiritual application of that life experience. And I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to hearing more about Kobiashi Maru, the no-win situation. So Sherrie, we are blessed to have you, and we look forward to what you have to share.
Well, good morning, everyone. It is just my pleasure to be here, and I thank April, so much for the invitation. I was listening to your conversations before we got started here this morning, and I was chuckling to myself. I spent 40 years in California, so I kind of know all the little tricks of the trade and what the process of what we learned to deal with in California. And I think my mother's favorite thing about my living in California when she would come to visit is the fact that, yes, the football games were on 3 hours earlier. And so she could get all her game watching in before 4 o'clock. And she was happy about that. So yeah, let's hear it for football being early in California. So this morning, the title of my talk is Kobiashi Maru, the no-win scenario. Now, I don't know how many Star Trek fans I have here with me today, but the Kobiashi Maru was an event which took place in the second Star Trek movie. Now, the second Star Trek movie was entitled The Wrath of Khan. And of the 6 movies, that particular one was my favorite. When the movie begins, I, as an audience person, is watching the curtain open and the movie start. And what we're seeing is the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. All of the usual regular characters are on the bridge, and they are out in space, and they have a cadet that is functioning as the captain. So all is peaceful as things open up, but shortly after the movie begins, the things start happening. We start seeing Klingon ships moving in to surround the Enterprise. And then we see some of the cadets. We find out that they're stuck on the planet below and can't get back to the ship. We see and hear alarm systems going off within the bridge of the ship. Things are starting to get a little chaotic. And people on the bridge are looking at the captain saying, "Captain, what do we do?" The Klingons are going to begin firing on the Enterprise, and the cadets and the officers on the bridge start getting injured. So all of this excitement is going on, and explosions start happening because the ship is being attacked. And all of a sudden, the lights come up on the set. A big cargo door opens on the set, and there stands Admiral James T. Kirk. And what we discover is that we, the audience, has been watching a simulation. And Captain Kirk looked at the crew and the cadets, and he said, the Kobiashi Maru test was over, and the cadet that was in the role of the captain had just failed the test. He looked at the cadet and said, "No one passes this test." He said, "It's a test to evaluate character and in how a captain would possibly handle the circumstances of a no-win scenario." Well, rumor had it on the ship that there had actually been one person who had actually passed the Kobiashi Maru test. It took 3 tries, but on the 3rd try, that person passed. Well, the cadet asked, "Who was that? I want to know who passed." And the cadet was told that Admiral Kirk had been the only one who had passed the test. So later, the candidate got up her courage and went to the Admiral and asked if she could ask a question. The Admiral said, "Sure." The cadet said, "Is it true that you were the only one that passed the Kobiashi Maru test? And if so, what did you do to pass the test?" The Admiral looked at the cadet and he smiled and he said, "Yes, I was the only one who has passed this test And he said, what I did to pass the test, I chose to reprogram the computer to change the conditions of the test. In astonishment, the cadet looked at him and said, why did you do that? How? Why? He looked at her and said, I don't believe in a no-win scenario. And I don't like to lose. What is a no-win scenario? Is this a situation where it appears that we have no viable solution? No way out, no choice, no option, no control, or no satisfactory outcome? How many times have we found ourselves in what appeared to be a no-win scenario? Or how many times have we found ourselves stuck between a rock and a hard place? How many times have we ever had a job promotion that we worked hard to achieve, and then get there, get in the job, and find out that our new boss is someone that that has horrible communication skills? How do we figure out how to communicate? How many of us found ourselves in situations of divorce where both parties find themselves unable to agree on how fairly to divide up assets or work out child visitation? How many of us have had children that we don't think that we can communicate with? How many of us have found ourselves in financial challenges? We believe we have no money to solve our situation. And how many of us have dealt with emotional pain that goes along with all of this? Wayne Dyer wrote, if you believe it will work out, you'll see opportunities. If you believe it won't, you will see obstacles. In the Bible, the book of 2 Kings, chapter 4, verses 1 through 7, it tells the story of a woman who comes to the prophet Elijah in great distress. Her husband has died, and she and her 2 sons have been left bereft and destitute. She is in debt and has no prospects of income. Back in those days, when people were in debt, their children were sometimes taken into slavery to pay off that debt. She was screaming at Elijah that her debtors are coming to take her children. Elijah asked her to calm down and take a breath. He asked her to look around her dwelling and see what she had in the house. She says, I've only got 1 pot of oil. Elijah told her to go and find as many pots as she could. He then asked her to pour the oil from the pot that she has into one of the new pots, and then begin to pour the oil into all of the other pots. She proceeded to fill the pots. She then realized that she could sell this oil. She did so and was able to pay her debt. As the woman was filling up the pot, she was at the same time reprogramming the computer, her consciousness. She realized that she could sell the oil and make money to pay her debt. To her, she was in a no-win situation of lack. And then the woman saw the wisdom of spirit active in her life. We must understand that we are magnificent, individualized expressions of all that God is. God is the source and substance of all of our supply. And our belief in this truth must be burning bright at the core of our being at all times. Because God is the source and substance of all of our supply, we must believe and understand that there's no such thing as a no-win scenario. Spirit always provides. If we are facing a scenario causing us angst and fear, we must program our consciousness from fear to faith. We're always living in God's eternal substance. God's eternal substance, which means solutions to our challenges are waiting for us to see them. If we are all God is, and God is the source and substance of all of our supply, how can we possibly be faced with a no-win scenario? There is always a solution. The answers may not come to us from the direction in which we're looking. However, if we are willing to reprogram our consciousness, all things are possible. After we reprogram our consciousness to the truth of our relationship with God, we must have faith in the process, which brings solution to whatever our situation is. Eric Butterworth wrote, "Faith is expectancy. If you do not receive what you want, you do not receive what you pray for, not even what you say you have faith in. You always receive what you actually expect. Monitor your expectations." So if we expect there to be no-win scenarios in our lives, we have to change the computer. We have to reprogram that consciousness. When I was teaching, I am actually a religious, I was ordained as a religious science minister through the Centers for Spiritual Living. And so I've been around as a minister for a long time. And when I taught class, one of the words the students constantly brought up as they were working to understand the process of metaphysics and the understanding of our relationship with spirit, one of the words they brought up a lot was the word how. So I know that God is the source and substance of all of my supply, but how am I going to solve this scenario? How do I know what to do? How is this going to bring work for me? I usually stopped my students at this point, and I shared this with them. I said, what we get to understand is it is our job as individual expressions of God to know what we want to experience in our lives. And it's God's job to know the how. When we find ourselves asking how, we must immediately recognize that we are crossing the line and stepping into God's business. And I used to tell my students, when you find yourself asking how and you recognize you are standing in God's business, get out, back up, stop. My job is to know, to have faith and trust that Spirit is in me, through me, as me, all the time. So how I get to where I want to go is none of my business. We open that heart and let God drive that bus. We can also support ourselves in this process by going into prayer to support our ability to change our consciousness. We declare what it is we would like to see take place in our lives. We expect the situation to be resolved for our highest and best good. We have faith that it is done. And we get out of the way and let God handle the how. I know that when it appears that I'm in a no-win situation, I surrender to that power of Spirit. I do my best to stop trying to figure it out. I was raised in a Baptist environment. And so one of the biggest challenges I had when I began to study metaphysics was understanding where my responsibility started and stopped, and where God's responsibility started. So after I declared what I would like to see happen, I had to relax and let go and know that that which I desire is coming to pass to my highest and best expectation, to my highest and best ability, to what was best for me. And sometimes God knew that better than I did. My action is not to get into God's business by worrying about how. My action is to be still until I feel the direction in which Spirit wants me to move. In my meditation, I remind myself, be still and know that I am God. Charles Fillmore wrote, "Today, let us at once begin to set our world in order by reforming our thoughts. Let us invoke our divine wisdom of Spirit to guide our thinking. Let us lay hold of and make manifest the great thoughts of God, the ideas that point the way by which we are to establish His kingdom and bring happiness to ourselves." Spirit is always working for our highest and best good. I used to tell my students that God only knows how to say yes. God only knows how to say yes. Sometimes God comes up with ideas for our highest and best good that were not on our radar. As I said, I was raised in the Baptist tradition. I discovered the religious science philosophy in 1983. And in the 90s, I faced a diagnosis of a chronic health challenge in which shifted my life. And it challenged my life upon more than one occasion. So as I was recovering, I seriously got into studying religious science. And before I knew it, the years had passed. I had taken exams. I had received my practitioner's license and my ministerial credential. And I technically had gone to class to study during this 5-year period because I was learning something that was helping me heal. I remember that as I was in this healing process, I physically had strength to be outside of my house one night a week. And I chose to go to class on that night. And so going to class for me became about healing. And so by the time my body had healed, I was standing there facing my exams for my ministerial credential, none of which I had planned to do. All I ever wanted to do was go to class. I'm grateful for this teaching. I'm grateful to be a minister here, where I'm able to share these principles with others. In his book, Spiritual Economics, Eric Butterworth wrote, "The universe owes you a living." Yes, we're saying owes you a living. Note, we are not actually saying the world owes you a living. Actually, the world owes you nothing. You are a creative expression of the universe with the responsibility to let your light shine. Thus, you owe the world a life. But in all the many ways in which you apply yourself in the world, the universe owes you complete support. So when you find yourself facing a Kobiashi Maru test, believe everything will work out for your highest and best good, and you will see opportunity. Have faith and expectancy that good is coming to pass in God's divine order and timing. Take action. When it becomes clear on what our next step is to be, take it. Spirit has always got our backs. Reminds me of a little story of a mother who had 2 sons. One of them was 11, the other one was 7. And she was a single parent. She worked all day and she had to do her best to keep track of these boys. But no matter what she did, it seemed that these boys were never far away from trouble. And she was starting to get frustrated and get to her wit's end. And so she finally went to the minister in her town and she said, "Look, I need some help. I've got these kids and I love them dearly and I want the best for them, And right now, neither one of them are any more than 2 steps away from whatever trouble is going on in this town. And I need some help. So the minister looked at her and he said, tell you what. He says, why don't you send each one of them to see me? Send them one at a time. He says, send me the youngest one first. And then we'll, and I'll have a little chat. So the mother went home and she asked the youngest one to go down the street to the church to see the minister. So when the little boy got in the minister's office and sat down, the minister looked at him and he said, son, where is God? And the little boy just looked at him. And the minister looked at him. He said, son, I'm asking you here now, where is God? And the little boy started to fidget in his chair. And he started wiggling his feet and his hands, and he was getting all nervous. And the minister looked at him one more time and he said, son, I'm asking you, where is God? Well, the little boy jumped up out of the chair, took off running, flung the church door open, ran out to the street, ran down to his house, threw open the gate, ran in the front door, ran past his brother into his bedroom, in the closet, and slammed the door. Well, the older brother went in there. He said, hey, what is going on? He opened the door. He said, look, what's the matter with you? What's happening? What did he say to you? And the little brother looked up at the older brother and he said, God is missing. And they think we did it. Thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. As we say, live long and prosper. With God, all things are possible. And so it is. As we take a deep breath, I ask you to chuckle as long as you need to chuckle, but relax into your seat. Close your eyes if you'd like, and breathe. For we know right here and right now, there is only one life. And that life is God's life. And that life is my life right now. I know that I am one with all that God is. As I relax and continue to breathe, I feel a warmth in the center of my being, in that solar plexus spot of my body. A gentle warmth. And as I continue to breathe, I allow that warmth to move up through my torso, into my shoulders, down through my arms, through my elbows, through my wrists, to the tip of my fingers. I feel that warmth. I allow that warmth to move up through my neck and into my head and out the crown of my head. I feel that warmth moving down into my hips, into my legs and my knees and my ankles and my toes. I feel my feet in connection with the ground. I feel my oneness with spirit. All is good in my life. I continue to breathe, and I feel that safety, that comfort. I know and recognize that guidance that is ever present, that still small voice within me that whispers my next move. I know that this time right now is precious. So I allow myself to continue to feel at one with all that is in the next few moments of silence. I, I am filled to overflowing with gratitude. I am so grateful that Spirit is ever present, guiding my life. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so grateful for all that I am. I am so grateful that I recognize that my life is good and very good. I am so grateful that I recognize that Spirit is a healing energy, and that whatever cell or cells in my body that need rejuvenation, Spirit has got this. I know that each life that I touch brings me joy. Each life that I touch allows me to be that magnificent expression of God, to be that love, to be that peace, and to know that all is well. So as I slowly allow myself to return to this place, as I allow that warmth within my body to return to the core of my being, I know it burns constantly, loving me, supporting me, guiding me, blessing me. And I release all the words that have been spoken here into that mind of God, knowing they are already done and complete by means of me. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Sherrie. Thank you for sharing with us today. We are blessed as well.